Liberal or Labor?
Liberal.
You walk in. On the way out.
Best man.
That's the best button I've seen in a long time.
Are voters really to believe that somebody who, after a brutal pre-selection, rose from backbencher to PM in just 11 years is not a highly ambitious and strategic political player?
What people have seen of me, Lee, is what I'm like each and every day.
Yeah, good stuff. Here we go.
3 years ago, voters didn't really know Scott Morrison all that well. Ironically, he now levels the same charge at Anthony Albanese.
Smith, that was it.
Back then, the Liberal leader meticulously cultivated the ScoMo image. A central question of the 2022 campaign now is just how tarnished that image may be.
How good is Australia? I have always believed in miracles.
The election defied all the predictions, but the end result was that having gained just one extra seat in the House of Representatives, Scott Morrison was going to govern with a wafer-thin majority and a wafer-thin agenda. That gave the rebels on his backbench and the Nationals a continuing tight grip on power and policy.
We want to see the plan. We want to understand the consequences.
If you look back at the past 3 years, the government's early legislative agenda is full of things that still haven't happened or have failed to get through the Parliament. Religious discrimination, the Coalition's version of an Indigenous voice to Parliament, and proposed new laws targeting unions. And from the beginning of the term, there were the issues that have continued to dog the government: establishing an anti-corruption body, claims of administrative incompetence, and relentless reports of taxpayers' money being channelled through what were alleged in Parliament to be partisan slush funds.
We have this obsession with getting rid of the Building Australia Fund simply because the National Party can't use it as a slush fund for whatever projects they want.
The trauma Labor felt on losing what had been regarded as an unlosable election has also made its mark on today's politics.
Our recommendation isn't about particular policies, but a less cluttered agenda going into the next election, but no less bold, no less bold.
Labor elected a new leader.
I'm not Tony Abbott. People want solutions, not arguments. They have conflict fatigue.
As opposition leader, Anthony Albanese pledged less adversarial politics, dumped many of Labor's controversial policies, and signalled he would keep the focus primarily on the government and gambled that it and the PM would destroy themselves.
But in this Melbourne Cup week, I got some handy advice on Monday. Always have the race won, but never be in a hurry to win it.
International relations have also been challenging. Our closest ally was going through a period of unprecedented political instability, and increasingly our relationship with our biggest trading partner was starting to change. It is instructive to look back at where things stood in 2019.
How do you view China's signature foreign policy, its Belt and Road initiative to expand its political and economic influence throughout the world?
Well, that's China's initiative, and it doesn't require Australia to endorse that initiative. That is a policy pursued by the Chinese government, and that's their sovereign choice to do so.
Prime Minister, your government's torn up Victoria's Belt and Road deal. Why did you think this was an important thing to do, and why do it now?
Australia, under our government, will always protect Australia's national interest.
And last year, another huge shift: the staggering decision to dump the French submarine contract and go nuclear, which provoked a response which once again raised questions about the Prime Minister's character.
Do you think he lied to you?
I don't think. I know.
For most Australians, though, these last 3 years have been dominated by dangers closer to home. Australia's east coast began to burn shortly after the 2019 election, with the devastation eventually reaching from Queensland to Western Australia and to Tasmania. The PM played down suggestions the federal government needed to lead a national response.
It's led by a cabinet minister who reports directly to me, and I deal with it directly with the premiers of the states and chief ministers of the territories. I don't think it can go any higher than that.
You are out! Scott Morrison was confronted by angry residents while visiting the burnt-out town of Cobargo.
The catastrophic nature of the fires and the PM's perceived tardiness, then absence, would leave an indelible mark on his prime ministership.
They know that, I don't hold a hose, mate.
As our national leader, should you have seen some of the warnings that were there and done more?
Well, David, the thing about things that are unprecedented is exactly that. They're unprecedented. I mean, the scale of these events, and particularly as they've only emerged in the last few weeks when we had a state of natural disaster for the first time declared only just over a week ago.
Politics continued to be punctuated by scandals. Grants skewed to target electorates, questionable land deals at Sydney's new airport, and the government was forced to settle a $1.2 billion class action over its robo-debt policy that had been found to be illegal. But a new and even bigger crisis was about to eclipse not just scandals, but the bushfires.
The assumption is it's a virus that's been in animals that has somehow made the jump from animals to humans, as did SARS coronavirus and MERS coronavirus.
The Chinese authorities have effectively shut down several cities.
COVID would come to dominate Australian politics as well as our lives. The federal government was under pressure on quarantine and cruise ships, but was praised for its support packages. And COVID changed Australian politics. Daily press conferences, a national cabinet, the revival of the prominence of state premiers. But people started dying in nursing homes under the federal government's watch.
Minister, how many residents have COVID-19 today?
Again, Senator, I don't have the report with the actual detail in front of me.
2020 saw the sharpest recession since the Great Depression and skyrocketing unemployment, prompting massive government spending worth around $150 billion in March 2020 alone. It was a rapid abandonment of debt and deficit politics, which has dominated our debate for decades. And there was this issue, claims of bullying, sexual harassment or worse. A toxic culture for women in Parliament House dominated politics for months, provoking an outpouring of anger from women across the country.
If it can happen in Parliament House, it can truly happen anywhere.
Not far from here, such marches, even now, are being met with bullets. But not here in this country, Mr. Speaker.
Top 20 marginal seats. Did you see them?
But if there was a theme that kept recurring through the parliamentary term, it was competence.
We hoped by the end of March, I should say, to have reached some 4 million population. That is a target.
But the hopes were rapidly dashed.
We have vaccinated 100,000 people so far.
This is not a race.
The government's capacity and competence has once again been under fire in the past month over its response to the catastrophic flooding on Australia's east coast. Much of the focus is inevitably on the performance of the Prime Minister, but he goes into an election campaign with many of his cabinet colleagues carrying political wounds that in another era would have led to resignations. Whether their tarnished image will matter as much as the PM's in the next 6 weeks is yet to be seen.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 730's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.